Hi, and welcome back to Compliments Training Portal. I'm Jennifer Bagley, and today I want to talk a little bit about Google Calendar. This is a tool that we recommend to all of our clients. You can integrate it. It's a mobile device. You can easily download mobile applications that work on your iPhones or Blackberries or Androids. It's something you can set up with IMAP. Something that's very, very easy for you to integrate with Microsoft Outlook or any of your traditional Microsoft programs, but basically it's free. It holds a tremendous amount of data. It's interactive and has the ability to be connected on a World Wide Web, and you have the ability to manage more than just one calendar. So from an effective standpoint, this makes you incredibly, incredibly effective at managing multiple calendars, sharing information with people. A lot of people right now, they're working in more of a virtual world and less in a traditional environment where everybody's in the same office, working in the same hard server, and so forth. So I'm going to go over a couple things. First of all, I want to show you can have multiple calendars. You can add other people's calendars. So for example, if you want to have my calendar on your network, you could simply add jbuckles13@googlemail.com, and you would be looking at my calendar, my private calendar. Now, on here, you can also choose whether or not you want to look at specific calendars or not, simply by clicking on the icons, and those meetings will be removed and then re-added, removed and then re-added. So you can look at multiple views at the same time. If you have a sales team, this is a great way that we keep in touch with our sales team. If we have someone in business development that wants to schedule a meeting, they can simply go to their Google Calendar. They can click on a date. They can schedule a meeting with a potential client, need help, for example. And of course, this is not what I would want them to put. I would want them to put the client name, where they met the client, what the client's company name is, and so forth. From here, they can edit details. They can say where that's going to, so this may be a conference call. If you put an address in there, it's going to actually provide you with a Google map, so it makes it very easy. They're going to put in a description, so they may put in the company name, client name, details, and so forth. They can add a guest. So in my situation, they would actually go ahead and put in Rose Rivero, because she's my assistant, and that would give Rose the ability to see that meeting request and either say yes, no, or maybe. If she says no, then they would need to reschedule that. If she says yes, then it would immediately show up on both people's calendars. So from here, you can provide your guests with the opportunity to modify the event. So for example, if this was one of our sales force and they wanted to schedule a meeting, they could add Rose and give her the opportunity to modify the event. So if that particular day and time didn't work, she could try and reschedule it or work around something else. Hopefully you wouldn't have to worry about that, because as they are building their event, they're also able to see my schedule and other people on the team's schedule, so that they can be a lot more accurate when they're looking at times that are available to book appointments. So it definitely is a huge time saver when it comes to our company. Now, great part is I'm going to go ahead and look up these sample meetings. So one is on Saturday morning at 9. I'm going to open this back up, and let's say I want to assign this to somebody else who I actually manage their calendar. So if Rose logged in, she could go in and she could say, I want to copy this to William Preston's Gmail account. He would have the same information. She simply presses save, and you'll see that we just added this particular meeting. We copied it to someone else's calendar on our team. So it makes it very easy for someone in an office that's booking for multiple people to schedule that as well. So this is really the first lesson on how to use Google Calendar. Once you learn to use this, it will save you so much time. Definitely go to Google and you can type in Google Calendar for iPhones and so forth, and you can easily integrate this with your cell phone and be able to access your calendar on the go from anywhere, manage it, update it, be mobile, and work in today's very, very fast technology and communication environment. So I hope you find this quick tutorial valuable and you utilize it for your business. And we will come back and do another Google Calendar and show you how to integrate this with your website and with your client base. Thanks so much for visiting, and we'll see you online.
So let's take a quick look at some of the things I talked about in the blog article about time and task management. So the first thing is, as I discussed, I set my weekly preview. Now we're setting this for yesterday, but we'll see what we do here. So I set my weekly preview to, let me redo that. Okay, I didn't want to click through 30 minutes. I just want it to be a 15-minute appointment, which is my default. I want to do my weekly preview. We're going to go to edit the details of the event because I don't need any reminders, and I want to make it a repeating event. And it's going to repeat weekly. It's never going to end. Yes, we're going to review every single week. And then we're going to save it. Now what will happen is it shows dimmed here because that's yesterday, and prior appointments are dimmed by default. You can change that in your calendar settings. But if I go to my calendar kind of month at a glance here, and I drag across 3 weeks, it shows me 3 weeks, and we can see in future weeks that my weekly preview is now there. Let's go back to week view, go back to today, which brings us to the current week. And now we're going to look at task and all-day appointments versus just timed appointments. So first thing is, to set a task or an all-day event by default, and I think I want to iterate that I work in a weekly view 95% of the time, maybe more. I'm rarely in a month view unless I'm moving something around. I do the 4 weeks view when I do my preview. I mentioned that in the blog entry. And I'm rarely, if ever, in a daily view and working in that view. I also don't work in agenda view very much. So I'm in a weekly view, and I go up into the area above the timed calendar items, and I click on one of the open space areas below a date. And it's going to ask me if I want to do an event or a task. I'll click on task, and I'm going to say, call Jane, 800-555-1212. And I might mention what it's about regarding content strategy. Now I've created a task. Notice that tasks have a little checkbox next to them so you can mark them as completed or not. I really don't even use that. When I complete a task, I just delete it, get it off the calendar. But the nice part about this is once you have a task on a given date is it's very easy to move from date to date. I can just move it to Tuesday or to Friday, move it back to Monday. If I click up here again, an event is an all-day event. It might be at conference, whatever the conference is. There's the all-day event. Now it might be that when you're going to a conference, it's specific time frames for workshops, in which case I may not have at conference, or I might, and I might even have it over multiple days. That's another thing about all-day events, so you can drag it across multiple days. It doesn't give you the option for a task, because remember, a task is just for a day, and I can put conference or whatever, vacation, and it does it for all those days, an all-day event. But if it's specific, I'm going to delete that. If it's specific times and workshops you want to attend, you might put on here, let's say tomorrow, from 10 to noon. We'll just say social media workshop, since everybody's doing a social media workshop. And then we'll say at 1:30 to 4, that's time and task management. That's the most important workshop you can go to. And now it's listed on that day. Now if it turns out that you have it on the wrong day, once again, as with moving tasks around, we can move any all-day event around. We can move any of these workshops around. And so here's what ends up happening. I end up having multiple items and tasks, like I might have start time and task presentation. So I'm not starting it as far as an appointment. What I mean is I want to start working on that presentation. So create outline. And that's something I'm going to do today, but I don't have it set as a time yet. I will probably do that, so when the day comes up, I'll start that work. And I might realize that, well, I have to do the presentation in the first week of July, so I don't want to start working on it till next week sometime. So once again, I drag down, I see multiple weeks, and this is how I do my preview and review all the time. I'm looking at multiple weeks. Maybe I'm looking at 4 weeks at a time. Let's go to today. So I'm looking at 4 weeks at a time, and I realize I don't want to start that project till here. I don't really need to work on the slide deck because I'm doing the presentation maybe down in January. So I'll just simply drag it down to the day I want to start working on it. And the key part of that is that time management is about being able to forget about items and moving them forward in the future. Now the other thing I do is go back to a week view. If I want to set a time to remind myself to call somebody, but I don't want it to really be on my calendar, a task won't do that. I don't want to set an appointment, but I want to remember to call somebody. I have this other calendar called Phone Reminders that has a 20-minute and a 2-minute reminder via text message. I'll go to the day in question, 9 o'clock, click on it, call Joe, 888 555 1212. I know, same number as Jane. Joe and Jane have the same number. And I'm going to set my calendar to phone reminders. Create the event, and we'll see it has a different color now because it matches my phone reminder calendar. And so this is useful if I'm sharing my calendar. This doesn't really show up. I don't need somebody to see that I'm reminding myself to make a phone call. But more often than not, I've had people tell me, wow, you're very punctual when it comes to phone calls. And I kind of laugh about that because it takes me work to do that. But once it's set up and in place, it's very simple to manage. And so if I try and call Joe, he's not available, or it goes to voicemail, I can maybe leave him a voicemail, but I say, okay, I'm going to try him again. I can move that down to 3. It's going to remind me a second time. And so that's kind of how I use my calendar for task and time management. Hopefully you find it helpful. If you have any questions, feel free to contact me, and I appreciate you taking the time to look at what I'm doing. Thanks.
Hey there, this is Dawn Mars Ortiz, and I know I've been talking a lot about planning for the new year and planning your marketing promotions in 2016. And so I wanted to give you a sample of what my calendar looks like when I'm planning out a year of promotion. So this is just the first month, right? This is what I'm planning for the first month. And so you can see everything is color coordinated. And if you look down on the side, I've got different calendars here. So I've got my Dawn Mars calendars. I'm going to show you that in a minute. I actually have it turned off. Then I've got advertising, email promotions, Mars marketing blog posts, social media posts, tasks, and webinars. So those are the main types of marketing that I'm doing. These are the moving pieces that I tend to be using the most. And so in order to set up a calendar, all you would do is hover over my calendars and click here and say create new calendar. And so let's say that you were doing press releases. It was something you were working on. Then you would just call it press releases here. You could put in a description of that this is going to be your press releases. Put in anything else here that you want to do, and then create calendar. This is pretty much all that I do. So I'm going to create the calendar, and you're going to see that it shows up here, and it's showing up in red. I want to change the color of this calendar, so I'm going to choose a custom color, and I'm going to make it, what's a color I'm not using? I'm kind of using them all. We'll use this light blue-ish color. There's really not much difference. Let's try something else. We're going with brown. Okay, so what you do then is try to figure out when you're going to be doing your promotion. So for example, I know that I like to produce my content and put out my blog content on Wednesdays. And so in order to do that, I just click on the days that I want to do a blog. So you can see I do it every week or every second week, depending on what my schedule is. Because I'm doing a webinar on this week, I'm not going to write a blog post because I'm going to have a lot of work to do. And I think kind of understanding when your busiest times are going to be is really important so that you don't overwhelm yourself. Because if I was trying to do a webinar on a Tuesday and Wednesday and also put out blog content, I would be completely overwhelmed. So I just make sure I'm not doing that. But let's say I did want to put out a blog post. I would just click on the date I want the blog post, and I would call it blog. And this might be about, let's say this was about lead generation. Okay, and here I'm going to choose the calendar because I'm doing a blog post. I'm going to choose blog posts, and I'm going to create that event. So what that does is it creates an all-day event and kind of blocks your calendar. Now, something that I really like to use with Google Calendars is tasks. If I know I have a blog post coming up, then I know I need to task myself to actually write it. So there's a couple things you can do inside of this task. or sorry, this calendar thing that I have here, I can go in here and say edit event. Okay, so now that I'm in the event and I can edit it, I can say down here, I can add a notification, and I can tell it to notify me 2 days ahead of time, because I want at least 2 days lead time to prepare myself and get that blog post done. So I'm going to make myself a notification that's going to give me a pop-up at 9 a.m. 2 days ahead. If you think you might need more than one, you can always add additional pop-ups, or you can also send yourself an email. So I'm just going to have one, because one's all I need. And I'm going to save that. So I'm going to get a notification because of that. But what I really like is what you'll notice on the side is that I have tasks. And so what I do is I click on the day that I actually want to task myself to do the blog post. And I'm going to type in here content. And then I'm going to say write blog post. All right. And so in here, we're not changing it to calendar. We're actually going to task. And you can write a note about what your blog post is going to be about. That's, a good practice to do. And then create your task. So now you can see it showed up over here. So this is my list of to-do items. And if you want to have it organized like this, what you need to do is click on actions. And then you want to, you can say view completed tasks, view in my order. And so if I go to my order, it looks like this. But what I want to do is sort by due date, so that the first task is due up here. And what that means is, let's say that I complete this task, I finish my blog post, I can check the little box and it crosses it off. It kind of closes the loop and I know it's done. So now I know that the next thing that I'm going to need to work on, once I get past this, I've written my email and I've done everything that needed to happen for that blog post to be syndicated, I know that my next task is to write my next blog post for next week. So if I have time blocked in my week that I'm not doing anything, I can just move ahead and get started on what needs to be done next week. This keeps me super, super organized and on the ball. It saves me from basically sitting at my desk and wondering what I should do next and reorganizing my pens and pencils because I'm, feeling lost or stuck and not knowing what I should do. Now, another really cool feature of Google Calendars that you should definitely be using if you are not already is this calendar down here. So right now, because I live in the United States, you can see there's holidays in the United States, which is cool because I have it set up to be in red. So it shows me glaringly when there are holidays, right? So I've got New Year's Eve, New Year's Day, Martin Luther King Day. That's all coming up in January. So I know that I need to do promotions based around that because I work in the US market. Now, I also work in the Australian and Canadian markets. So if you click on other calendars right here, you can go to Browse Interesting Calendars. And it's going to show you all these different things. So Christian holidays, Muslim holidays, Jewish, all this kind of stuff. And then it's got by country. So if I want to do Australia, I could click here and say Preview. And it's going to show me all of the cool holidays that are going on in Australia. So if you've got a lot of customers in Australia, if you've got a lot of people on your list in Australia, then you might want to make sure that you are talking, you're speaking their language and promoting for things that they actually care about. Because like the Adelaide Cup, not such a big thing in Canada or the US, but it would matter to your Australian customers, and what matters to your customers should matter to you. So Harmony Day, for example, I don't think that that's a Canadian or a US holiday. Anzac Day. These are things that you may want to be thinking about and have on your calendar. So I'm going to close out of this. And what I can do is actually subscribe to this calendar. And I also want to go and grab Canada because I am from Canada and I market in Canada. So I'm going to use those two calendars. And now I can go back to my calendar. And you can see that they've been added here. And I'm going to make them in bright colors. I'll make Canada. Oh, there we go. So now I'm not going to miss these things because they're actually showing up in bold colors on my calendar. And if I just want to look at those, I can actually turn off all of these, right, to kind of, make it easier to look at. If I just want to see my email promotions, or I just want to see holidays. So I'm going to turn everything back on so it looks the way that it did. So that's just one little secret that I wanted to share with you so that you don't miss a beat with anybody that you're promoting to in any country, that you make sure and observe the things that they care about. So let's talk a bit about time blocking, because what I've done here is just kind of laid out all of the different moving pieces. I love the color coding. I love knowing all the moving pieces. Like for example, if you look here where I've got a webinar is not just a webinar. You actually have to create your webinar, create your slides, set it up, right? So you need to have a registration page made. You need to have email promotions. You need to run your ads. You need to have your social media posts. And I think that what happens is, like, let's say you've decided you're going to run a webinar, it's really easy to forget about all those different pieces that need to happen. And so it's really easy to end up getting overwhelmed. So just having this on your calendar, like, okay, I know I need these email promotion piece going out in order for this webinar to be a success, and having those emails pre-written, it takes so much pressure off. Okay. And then you can focus on just delivering great value, great content, and, selling, if you're going to be selling a program or a product, to just really perform at your highest level and not be worried about all the marketing pieces. Okay. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to turn on my Donmars calendar, which I promised you I would do. So I'm going to click here, and you're going to see it all of a sudden looks really busy. And I don't want you to be overwhelmed by that. What I'm going to do is show you here why I have all of these different little Donmars tasks. I'm going to show you in week view. So this basically is my calendar being blocked off. So I've got this calendar, this calendar that actually is the first one that was created as part of my calendar. And what I do is when I want to block time to do something, like I need time blocked for blogging, I need time blocked for email marketing, I put them in my calendar. So to do that, let's say the week that I'm working on the webinar, I'm going to go over here, and you can see that I've got ads for this lead generation secrets webinar. Well, I'm going to need to set aside some time to actually do that. So on this week, I didn't have that blocked off, but I'm actually going to go ahead and block off 2 hours to set up the ads for that. And I'm going to say ads. And I'm going to leave it on Donmars. And this time when I create the event, because I actually blocked a time for it, what it's doing is it actually makes it busy. And that means that, like, other clients can't book into my calendar. When I wake up that morning, I know that's what I'm working on. All right, so this basically tells me when I need to have these things running, and blocking your calendar like this tells you when you need to be working on them. So I hope this is helpful. This is just a way that I've found that's really, it's really working well for me to keep my life organized, my business life organized. Because once you set up a Google Calendar, you can sync it with your phone. You can make sure that you're getting notifications. It makes your life so much easier. And so rather than, feeling stuck and wondering, like, what should I be working on today? What should I be doing? Set yourself up a calendar like this. If this looks, setting up an entire year feels overwhelming, just go ahead and knock out the first 3 months of your year. What is the first quarter going to look like? Are you going to do a webinar at some point in the first quarter? Are you going to do email marketing? Are you going to do run ads to build your list? Whatever it is, block that time out in your calendar and show yourself a visual representation of what it is you're going to get done. And I promise you, you will be so much more productive than you ever would have believed possible. So when you do actually implement this, I would love to see what you've done. Go ahead and take a screenshot and post it here. Have an amazing holiday season, and I will talk to you soon.